and welcome to the special edition of Tech at Work. I'm Reema Tendulkar, coming to you from the NASSCOM annual flagship Technology and Leadership Summit. Here today, I caught up with many stalwarts from the world of technology to get a sense of the demand, the macro environment that we're currently in. Listen in from Krishnan Ramanujam, who is the president of TCS. He's also the chairperson of NASSCOM, and he tells us that the mood is cautious. In fact, majority of the clients appear to be cautious. I also caught up with Kishore Patil, the co-founder, CEO, MD of KPIT Technology. He, on the other hand, is very confident about maintaining an organic revenue growth of 20% over the medium term. Listen in.
If you look at job creation at scale, right, the industry added about 290,000 jobs during the course of the year, which again, judging by pre-COVID standards, the last 2 years have been very different. But by the pre-COVID standards, it is a very, very strong job creation performance by the industry. Similarly, if you look at the innovation side of it, startups, 1,300 new startups happened during the course of the year. The early stage funding for those startups went up by 25%. So all of these are extremely bullish and extremely positive developments that portend to a fantastic year that has gone by. So we are supremely pleased with that. You asked about the year ahead. So year ahead, while I'm not able to share any numbers for the year ahead, the survey broadly points to caution in the wind, right? And that's understandable. I think we've all known it for a while that the war in Ukraine, the recessionary headwinds that are caused by the combination of the war and other geopolitical considerations that are going on, as well as the effect of inflation, the rate, US dollar strengthening, and so on and so forth. There is a lot of uncertainty in the world. Even if you look at the year 2022, the manner in which it began with a lot of optimism and exuberance, it went through several seesaw things, and by the end of the year, it looked very different, completely opposite to how it began. And in between, there were quite a few changes in sentiment as well. So most organizations globally are having a very hard time in terms of planning and the horizon at which they have to plan. And that uncertainty is the broad keyword.
So when you say clients are caution, how will this show up? Does it show up in tech budgets not being reported as they typically do in the month of January, February, March? Will it be delayed by 6 months? Or will they now plan for tech spends for 3 months instead of an annual spend? Does it result in deals being paused or being cut in size? How does this caution show up?
It is not a one-size-fits-all, Reema.
It's all of the above?
All of the above, which is what makes it a little more complicated. When we talk about the situation being uncertain and caution is in the wind, different companies are reacting to the situation differently. Right? Some of them are choosing to postpone their budget finalizations by 3 months. Others are saying, let's take a short-term view. Let's not do an annual budget, but let's take a 3-month view and do this. And others are saying that all of the new product introduction related things will suspend, but let's try and get some operating efficiencies going so that we are ready for a rainy day. So it is mixed across the board.
And how many CXOs did you all survey when you did this tech survey? And these were global CXOs? These
are all global CXOs, but I'd be hard pressed in terms of numbers and so on and so forth. That probably NASSCOM Secretariat would be able to give you the specific numbers.
But would you say that this is a majority view? This caution?
That's right. Caution would be the majority view across industries, I would say.
And that would imply, right, that growth next year is going to be less than what we've seen this year?
The problem is I don't know, right? Firstly, growth would be less when you look at it from a FY23 point of view, probably. And that's because, just as I talked about, we are just coming off of a pandemic, and that induced a huge wave of tech spending and so on. And FY23 had a bit of that tailwind as well. And FY24 would probably be the first year which is truly having no effects of the pandemic, right? And that, in my opinion, needs to be compared with how an FY19 or FY18 was. When you do that comparison, I am reasonably optimistic that it will be a positive year. But if you compare it with FY22 or FY23, you would be fair in saying that it would be slower.
You all are calling this a no normal year, a no normal environment. What exactly does that mean?
So that's what I just talked about, right? It's very hard for anybody to predict anything and be able to plan for it. And just as an example, right, if you take FY22, the year began on a very exuberant note, right? How technology is the medicine to everything, and it's going to be a super year. Globally, we are recovering from the pandemic. There's going to be a huge resurgence, growth, and so on. And then along came the war, and suddenly all hell broke loose, and it went into a bit of a slowdown, if you will, right? Similarly, when the year began, at least in India, but more broadly globally as well, attrition was a huge issue, right? And we were all worried about that.
Well, now we're worried about layoffs.
Right? Yeah, exactly. So the way in which it has panned out is that not only is no longer a year of mass resignation, it's threatening to lead into a year of mass layoffs as well.
But can that happen in India, mass layoffs? All we've seen right now is hiring being paused or slowed down, headcount being stable, not increasing.
I would say anything can happen. I'm not saying anything will happen. Anything can happen because
can.
See, we will as a broad industry point of view, right? Anytime there is a lot of exuberance, at least part of that exuberance will result in irrationality. Right? Depending on companies, how irrational have they been in terms of their planning of taking advantage of the benign scenario last year.
The tech industry has been irrational in its hiring, you think, over the last 2 years?
No. What I said was, anytime there is exuberance, at least part of it is likely to be irrational.